Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today I want to talk to you about drawing islands. Now this sounds a bit strange, but for me it was, and it is still, such an important activity. And it brought me so much joy as a child and continues to bring me joy. So I thought I'd bring you a little bit of that joy as well. So hopefully you enjoy this. As a child I was hooked very, very quickly on Usborne puzzle books, and I've already talked about those. But prior to that, the gateway drug was the Puzzle World books, and this is sort of the compendium of those on the shelf next to me. In the Puzzle World, there was a series, three main books, but there was one book in particular which just inspired me so much in primary school, and that was Puzzle Island. My friends and I were reading this book, going through, doing the puzzles, blah blah blah. But when we got to this particular double spread, or the introduction to Puzzle Island, where we had to identify Puzzle Island amongst a series of other islands, we were just thrown into this amazing, lush world which the illustrator had provided for us. We were struck by the style of the drawing, the lushness of the foliage, the animals, the things like the rope bridges and the water around the islands, the way that the islands rose up out of the sea, the cone-like volcanic structures on some of these islands. The art style just inspired us. That's the only word I can use. It just grabbed us, and it gave us such inspiration that we were compelled to draw our own islands. And this somewhat snowballed over the course of a couple of years, really. In primary school, we went from drawing islands to drawing whole worlds. But I'll mention that. I'll come back to that in just a moment. But today I wanted to share with you, I guess, an island drawing. I wanted to draw an island for you, and hopefully you can see how it is that I draw the island and my thought processes. And I would invite you guys to have a go at home. Try and draw your own island, or islands. Keep a book of islands. It sounds strange, but it's so satisfying and so therapeutic, so relaxing. So anyway, without any further ado, let's just dive into drawing an island. So I'm going to draw an island very quickly for you now. It's going to be drawn in pen. Normally I would have done this sort of thing in pencil and gone over it in pen, but it's going to be fairly quick and dirty, just to give you a sense of how we would go about constructing our very special little islands. Now as my anchor, my way in to most of these islands, I would normally start with sort of a volcano type structure, whether it's a water volcano or a lava volcano or whatever, very similar to the ones that you see actually in the drawings in the Puzzle Island book. And I think the reason for this was that it was just a way of just getting into the rhythm of drawing, starting off, sort of killing the blank page, so that I could actually then start to let my imagination loose a little bit. So why break with tradition? I'm going to start by drawing not just one, I think, but two wee volcano type structures, and they're quite pleasing actually. I quite like them. I think the reason why I always drew them is because I always liked the way that they appeared in the book. I like the sort of rings of foliage which appear on these volcanoes. It's sort of, I don't know, it's pleasing. It's not really all that realistic, but it's a style. It starts off the island the way that I wanted it to be, to look. Now, something else which we'd often build into these islands would be a sort of a trade or a theme. And for this one, I'm going to do something which I know I had a fascination with when I was a child, and that was whenever we went past things like breweries or say power stations, I was always fascinated by the production of steam, the huge amounts of water which were being rapidly heated and cooled, creating, essentially clouds. And I remember in particular one island which I drew had this I suppose an economy of clouds. So people would be trading in clouds, and they would actually purchase clouds for their own islands. So my friends would as it were, inverted commas, come over to my island to get their clouds because, well, obviously they needed rain on their island. And this was the type of thing which we would build, which we would do. We would we would draw from the things which fascinated us in real life, sometimes very complicated or grown-up concepts, such as, for example, a power station, and we would I guess adapt them for our little world, worlds which we were building. And this is the thing, actually. This is the point: is that lots of people, when they saw these islands, they would sort of say, "Oh, is that a treasure island that you're drawing there? Are you drawing a where is that like a pirate's secret cove or whatever that you're going to go and find some treasure in?" And that was never really the point. The point was, and I mean, looking back on it now, it sort of makes more sense than it ever did. The point seemed to have been really making sense of the world around us in a way which we had control over. So essentially what we were doing was we were sort of adapting the parts of the world which we saw, the parts of the world which we liked, or indeed the parts of the world which we had maybe some trouble understanding. And we were trying to sort of bring them, I guess, under control, bring them to a point where we could talk about them with each other and make sense of these structures, these very adult and very, I suppose, in some cases very old landscapes that we would find ourselves travelling through, especially as passengers in cars. You know, those long car journeys to see family and friends and all these new sights and sounds. We'd almost always, for example, after the holidays, come back to school with inspiration for our new islands. So, for example, here I've got a castle with a slightly sort of typical haunted balustrade on top of the roof there. Maybe I'll put a flag. I'll put a flag up as well. There we go. And this is really how we proceeded, and it got really quite complex. I mean, you know, we'd sort of keep track of which islands had been drawn, which islands were trading with which other ones, which ones were perhaps even at war with other islands, and it got to a point where we basically we had to sort of essentially keep ledgers, these fairly complicated sort of documents, I guess, charting the story of the island, charting the story of the different people who we were in charge of, and eventually, actually, this actually branched out. It became something much more than just the island. It became actually a series of planets, and that sounds really strange, but we started to actually draw essentially themed planets. For example, maybe there would be a theme of one planet where they liked marshmallows, so sort of the planet would be kind of marshmallow shaped, and it would be next to a sun which was roasting it, you know, this kind of thing. So this was sort of this was the earliest version of quite literally creating I guess a whole galaxy between us of significance and meaning, and also, I guess, fun. You know, as I say, a fun way of thinking about those things which we were curious about, especially as children. Now, at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm just sort of making my island a bit more three-dimensional by putting on some cliffs, and you can see that I mean, you know, this is very much, it is heavily inspired by Puzzle Island. You know, I mean, I make no bones about it at all whatsoever. It was one of my favourite books as a child, and to be honest, it's one of my favourite books to this day. You know, you're allowed to have favourite children's books as an adult, and I've already shared a few of them with you on this YouTube channel, and I really liked, actually, the thing I really liked about this is the way that there were no rules, you know. And what I find interesting is that even now, as I'm drawing, I'm kind of struggling to remember that, if that makes any sense. I'm sort of struggling to remember that there are no rules. I don't have to. This island doesn't have to make particular sense. You know, up can be down, black can be white, this kind of thing. But I think as an adult, you start to forget that, And I think it's always a good idea just to remind yourself that actually you are able, you're allowed to create almost anything you want if you're making your own little world like this. And I think this is one of the reasons why lots of people say, "Oh, I'm not very good at art. I can't draw." Oh, because we kid ourselves that there are rules in terms of art. You know that you have to, for example, draw everything photorealistically, and that perhaps perspective and shading and color and photorealism are incredibly important when it comes to drawing, and it's not. It's really not. I mean, this is not by far not my best work, but ultimately, I'm going to keep this video and share it with you guys, because that's the point. It's not really about doing your very best. It's about having fun and, frankly, just doodling, mucking about as you go along, and creating a story. So, for example, in here, I'm going to have I'll put a beach just in there. I'll put sort of the waves washing up against the beach. Maybe put a cave at the back. This could be a pirate's cove, I guess. Maybe smugglers, and perhaps that tunnel reaches through, if I sort of do like a dotted line that's invisible, reaches through to a cave which is in the heart of the island, underneath the volcanoes. And what could be in the cave? I know. I'll put a stash of lollipops in there, I think. So that's one lollipop. 2 lollipops. There we go. And maybe an ice lolly, just to be sure, to be certain of providing for everyone's needs when they go to the secret cave. And this is this is quite literally what we'd do. We would spend in many ways. I recall actually on many sort of break times when everyone else rushed out to play football or whatever. My friends and I would do this. Now, I've been trying for the life of me to remember the name of one of the worlds in particular, which one of my friends came up with. His name actually was Mark, and he came up with this sort of series of creatures and rules which he abided by very, very strongly. And he called, for example, there were creatures called giblets, which resembled hands, and they'd wander around on this island or on these worlds, and they could transform into a tank. And I know I'm possibly swearing at you though. They transform into a tank and go, and then transform back again into a hand. I can't for the life of me remember what he called, because he's like, I remember this conversation that we had actually, where he was talking about how he wanted to set up a PLC, a publicly limited company. This was in primary school, I think he must have picked up the language from his dad. I think his dad was a businessman, and he wanted to set up a PLC based around this particular name, and I just cannot remember. I remember that I came up with the name Spiff, I think, to represent sort of my conglomerate of worlds and islands. And there was another guy called Ben who came up with the name Zog to represent his conglomerate of almost like a imagination empire. This is part of my imagination empire. And so what we'll put here, I think, a speaker. There you go. So I'd love to be able to remember what it was that Mark called his imagination empire, but I just can't. It's one of the things where, in doing these drawings, in returning to sort of to the methodology, then it feels like the name's been on the tip of my tongue, but it's never quite materialised, and it's a little bit frustrating, if I'm honest. But I'm sure it'll turn up at some point. I'll just have this moment when I'm maybe having breakfast or in the shower or something, and I'll just go, that was what it was called, and run out and say a random word to my lovely wife. And she'll be like, what? What are you talking about? Oh dear. So, let's see. The speaker, which is playing some music. Obviously it's coming up out of the grass there, I think. The speaker can be attached to, what we'll do, we'll put here, pointing at the village. And that's the other thing as well, actually, is that we would, as I say, we'd observe things in the landscape, but also we'd observe very intricate sort of technological details, which we'd then build into our islands. So, for example, mic stands, you know, or I don't know, the way that a fire engine actually worked or looked, this kind of thing. It would all make its way into these islands, and out of again, out of these observations would come these elaborations on our islands and planets that we drew in our spare time together. It's not a very good microphone, is it? But it's wireless. Notice it's got an arrow, so it's sort of sending out a signal. There we go, to the speaker. So these guys here are probably playing some music, I guess, from the little house to I don't know, maybe to honour the gods inside the volcano. Maybe I should put like some sort of god face up here. The god of the island. Do. There we go. It's not too bad. Could be better, but you know, it could be worse. And as I say, it's not about absolute artistic merit. It's about having fun and the thoughts which occur to you as you do this, and the feelings which they engender as well. So they're playing music for the gods. We've got this castle over here. I'll put another flag on the castle, I think. And let me see, maybe over here we'll put this sort of section of grass just jutting out, or island jutting out into the sea. Maybe a little bit more just there. There we go. I remember actually something which I would do a lot of would be to go around the edge of the island, sort of putting in these watermarks. It was always very important to me that people knew, you know, that's water. Water is there. I've also got this ladder coming down here. Maybe there's a beach that sort of extends up to there. There we go. And on the beach, shall we have a little sand castle, I think. Okay, and a spade. There we go. It's not too bad. What else? I guess one more thing. Shall we have one more thing? I know. Over here, we will have a mighty and terrifying creature. Why do the terrifying creatures always seem to have short, sort of stumpy front arms with like horrible claws on them? Especially maybe it's just the T-Rex factor. You know, we all kind of go back to our love of dinosaurs when we start trying to design and think about what these creatures might look like. I'll give this particular creature, I think, some wings. Turn it into a bit of a dragon, I think. And maybe he's blowing fire down on the unsuspecting inhabitants of the island. Tell you what, is ready to try and face off against the dragon. There we go. So there you go. I mean, this is a really quick and simple and slightly basic version of the type of islands that we would draw, but we had so much fun doing it, and they became so complex and so. I mean, this island isn't nowhere near full. You know, there's still loads of space where I can put things. We'd have lighthouses. In fact, actually, sorry, I'll put a lighthouse over here. I think we need one. We'd have lighthouses to sort of to aid the inter-island trade, this kind of thing, and I have to say, it was genuinely one of the most satisfying and creatively stimulating times of my childhood, because there weren't that many other opportunities. To be honest, I got quite bored quite easily in school, and having the ability to meet up with my friends and have, I suppose, like-minded imaginary conversations almost, I guess, have like-minded people trying to tackle the world in a very similar way was extremely satisfying and extremely good for my personal development. So there you go. This is something which is so important to me, and I'm going to keep on I'm going to get back into practicing these islands more and more, and maybe draw, I suppose, a version of the island which I would draw now, something which is important to me as an adult, and not just sort of, I suppose, not just emulate the islands which I drew as a child. So maybe I put a like a GameCube console in there or something. Actually, let's see if I can quickly draw something along those lines. You see, this stuff, it's endlessly malleable, and it just goes on forever. You know, you can just keep on keeping on, as it were, keep on adding on to this until the whole thing fills up. And then I think on the side of the GameCube there's a air vent, isn't there? There's an inlet there. At the back we've got there. Just need to hint at the handle on the back to shade in the black disc window a little bit. Yeah, so as I say, I'm going to keep on practicing these and eventually get to a point where I can draw islands for me now. But hopefully this has been interesting for you, and well, thank you so much for sticking around. So there you have it, island drawing, surprisingly satisfying and incredibly good fun, and also such a rich source for firing up your imagination, for exploring things that you're having trouble with, or that you can't quite get out of your head. You know, sometimes I'd draw an island which was filled with my troubles, which was filled with the things which was scaring me at the time, or which were confusing me, and that would be really helpful. So drawing islands, strangely satisfying, and hopefully you've been inspired to give it a go. Hopefully you've had a bit of fun with this video as well. Anyway guys, this has been a long video. I'll leave it there, but do give it a go. If you can, get hold of a copy of Puzzle Island, have a look at the art style and see where it takes you. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.